Heard you guys talking about the AAU. Yeah, I was looking. You guys got a really good program. Got the girls, the boys out there, everything.
Yeah, we have one boys team right now. We have four girls teams, and so
Nice.
our area has really good girls basketball. It's boys basketball, not so much. But yeah, we've really started to like kind of push into the AAU scene. Like we have 5 teams right now. Next year we'll probably have upwards of 10 to 15, and then the goal is to just keep on expanding this thing and start a movement and allow kids to do something that's bigger than basketball. Represent something that's meaningful to them because we've all been impacted by cancer. So
Yeah. I was going to ask you, how was it? I seen as you guys ran the camp this year. How was that?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you there.
You guys ran a camp this year for kids. How was that?
Yeah, it was awesome. We were able to bring in one of our players, Mo Creek, and
Yeah.
of all the players, like he's kind of the most popular in our area because he hit that shot last year. And he's been with us for a long time, so people kind of on TV gotten to see him play. And for our kids in our program, especially to be able to connect like what they represent with a pro athlete. We don't have a ton of pro athletes around here in Central Pennsylvania, so like for them to be able to do that was really, really cool.
Yeah, I thought that was real cool.
It was awesome on Mo's part and Charlie's part to come in and do that, and it shows the type of character and the type of people that they are. Like they believe in the brand, they believe, in what we're doing. Because the basketball is, believe it or not, only about 25% of what we do. Like, so much. My mom's kind of the head of. She spearheads everything medically, and I'm kind of responsible for the branding part. And so, like being able to bring those guys in was, truly, truly an awesome thing.
I was going to ask you. So tell us a little bit like about the foundation and stuff, and then the work that he goes in.
Yeah, so we we donate to Dr. A. James Moser at Beth Israel Deaconess Hospital in Boston. He was my dad's doctor, and he's known as the best surgical doctor in the country, maybe even in the world, probably the world, honestly. And we've donated now over $300,000 since my dad's diagnosis back in 2011. This started very, very small, very community driven, and now we're really starting to branch out a good deal and using the power of sports to really portray our message that. A lot of people get so caught up on it's donating money, it's doing this. Like what I don't want to say what cured breast cancer because it's still out there, obviously, but women aren't dying at it from nearly as high of a clip anymore as they used to. Was the fact that they made pink sexy. Lance Armstrong made wearing that bracelet like, oh, you're wearing that bracelet. Oh, you're one of them. I'm with you then. Like we're together if we wear that same bracelet. And our goal is to hopefully, have people see that Sideline Cancer shirt someday and be like, oh, you know who Marcus Keene is? Yeah, I love him. Type deal. I roll with you every day of the week.
Nice. Yeah, that's great. I mean, it's a great cause, and you guys been with the TBT since the beginning. And
inception.
What I noticed is that you guys. I mean, I'm sure you know it, and people may not have told you or not. You guys actually pioneered these guys playing these games for causes.
We did.
Because now you look up in TBT, you see, like maybe 4 or 5 other teams that that they're out there. Jimmy V, I think they have one for ALS, and but you guys really pioneered that whole thing for them.
Yeah, I would say like we kind of started it, but Challenge ALS when they went to the championship game, I think it was 2017 or 18. They really like Sean Marshall is one hell of a man. Like. What he did to put, Challenge ALS was on the map with the Ice Bucket Challenge, but to take it into a whole different sphere, like it was kind of baseball driven because Pete Frates was a baseball guy, and he brought it into basketball, and it was kind of like, we take pride now. Like when you think of TBT, like obviously you're going to think of Overseas Elite, you're going to think of Boeheim's Army, but you also think of Challenge ALS and Sideline Cancer, and Jimmy V's team was to make a run someday, in the same essence, and that's like a really cool thing that 10 years ago when we started this, we started with a 3-on-3 basketball tournament. We raised $1,500 through a basketball tournament, and we thought we were like awesome back then. And then it just evolved over time, and it's a lot of people's countless hours put in that have really helped to blow this thing up for us a good deal.
Yeah. So how hard is it to like pull all these guys together? Because you guys have guys from all over the place.
Yeah, we're still dealing with it right now, despite the fact that we're the number 1 seed. And the success that we had last year. And some of it has to do with some of it's still COVID driven. Like I feel as if the contracts overseas are different right now than they have been. Like we just lost a player 2 days ago because he signed a contract and they wanted him over there this Wednesday. And usually it's not till mid-August. And TBT knows that. And so they, formed their tournament around these pro players' schedules. So, we came in and we had certain players in mind. Like, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Isaiah Austin, played at Baylor. He was on our roster. Then he got picked in the first. He was number 1 overall pick in the Big 3 draft. And so
He played yesterday.
You got to go do that. Unfortunately, we understood him having to leave. And then Aubrey Dawkins got a chance at the NBA, and so we lost those 2 guys. And we had a very, very good roster, and we still do have a very, very good roster. We filled them with some really good players. Terry Larrier, who played at UConn. But we've definitely been scrambling a little bit more compared to what we've had to do in the past. Some of it COVID driven, some of it's just these, these pro leagues are changing their start dates just because of what happened last year.
Yeah. What's interesting? My son actually played in the same AAU organization as Terry Larrier. He was in the middle school team when Terry was in the high school team. Yeah.
That's crazy. Yeah, we just picked him up. Honestly, after you probably had asked us to be on here, it was after that we picked up Terry Larrier. It was Sunday of last week, so it was 1 week ago.
Wow.
Yeah, it might have been the same day that you asked us to come on. Honestly, we picked up Terry Larrier. So pretty cool. We call those God winks in our it's just like when God winks at you and you just go, oh, yep, there he is.
Do you guys find any challenges with bringing in players? Like do players, let's say, don't necessarily want to be affiliated with the cause? Like, do you think the cause represents any challenge for you?
I wouldn't say it necessarily represents a challenge for us. The majority of what we've tried to do since day one is to make this kind of a community-based team, meaning it's like, all right, Mo, who's one of your friends? Well, I'm good friends with Remy. Like, I'd like Remy to play with us. And, it kind of has all been, based on relationships. So we say and this in sports, like chemistry is so important. And like, we've had multiple GMs reach out to us over the last 2-3 years, say, we wish our team had the chemistry you have. Well, we don't have the luxury of saying, well, all of our guys went to Syracuse or all of our guys went to, Marquette. We have the luxury, though, of saying we can choose from a big pool of players, but when all things are equal, and even if talent is a little bit higher than maybe a different player, but these guys were roommates in college, we go, oh, yeah, we'll take the guy that's a roommate in college because we know there's going to be no personality issues then with the team.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So that's how we overcame that obstacle. Because early on, we were like the worst team in TBT. And so we kind of had to change up our strategies over time. And, we recruited one guy, his name was Jermaine Marshall, who I played against in high school, and it kind of all changed after we recruited Jermaine Marshall. He brought us in Mo and him brought us Remy, and then they brought us Raymond Cowles, and then we picked up Eric Thompson at the last minute. We were able to get Marcus Keene, and after that, when we were out in Wichita, it all just kind of turned upside down for us and became a really powerful movement.
Yeah, and what's interesting? I was looking at it. How did Charlie transition from being a player to the coach?
Yeah, so Charlie was our best player. I got a great story. Yeah, I got a great story about Charlie Parker that epitomizes what his character actually is. Our GM Billy Clapper, who graduated from the same high school that I did, called Charlie during the first TBT and was like, "Hey, Charlie, I got this tournament we're gonna play on. The championship games on ESPN. It plays for a pot of $500,000 at the time, 32 teams." And Charlie was like, "Yeah, I stood up. I was pacing back and forth, walking through my house. Like, yeah, $500,000 ESPN. I'm all about that." And then Billy, these are back in our old days. And Billy goes, "And we're going to donate every single dollar back to this foundation called Sideline Cancer." And Charlie's like, I sat down, I put my hands in my head, and he looks up and he goes, and I told him I was in. And ever since then, Charlie has been like Mr. Sideline Cancer. It's been truly remarkable. Like, he's going to be hosting events down in his area and selling T-shirts and, just trying to give back in a lot of ways. Like, he coaches one of our Sideline Cancer AAU teams, which is incredible that a professional like him is coaching an AAU team, and like, he thoroughly enjoys it because all he does, he trains kids, so he's constantly in basketball. And so he figured, it's a seamless transition for him to be able to do the AAU, and it kind of, goes right hand in hand with what he's doing.
So we got our third guy in Theo.
There we go. I saw that. What's going on, man?
How you doing, man?
I'm well. Good. How about yourself?
No complaints, man.
That's good. I'm glad to hear it.
I want to ask you, are there any rules different from the NBA as far as regulations or overtime rules?
there is no overtime in TBT. That's what's crazy because it ends on what's called the Elam end. You guys watch the NBA All-Star game this year or last year?
Yeah.
So the NBA has taken that from TBT, which is kind of cool. And so we, like last year, you know, if the fourth quarter ends and it's 71-68, let's say, whoever has 71, they add 8 points onto that score. And so you play to 79. So you always finish on a game-winning bucket, which is really cool, but it changes the way that the game is played. And it changes like what you do as a coach, because it used to be like, oh, there's 4 minutes left, you're up 20. You know, you put the bench players in. Well, with the Elam ending, it's like if the other team goes on a 12-0 run, well, oh crap, like, you know, the time's not going to run out on you. You got to get to a final score. And so it creates for some really crazy endings, like our game against Overseas Elite last year with Joe Johnson when we beat him, you know, in that shot that Mo hit. That's because of the Elam ending.
Yeah, the level of intensity at the end of those games is extremely high.
Oh, yeah, and that's all. I'm an advocate. I think that the high school game, the college game, the pro game, it should all be Elam ending, because it's like when you go down to the YMCA and play, it's like you play to 15 or you play to 11, whatever, and it's a score, you know, not necessarily time. And so I really like the Elam ending. At first, I was a little skeptical about it. Now I'm all about it.
Plus, like you said, it kind of takes teams out of that mold of, oh, we could just hold the ball and let the time run out, and it eliminates all of that.
Yep, no fouling at the end, all that type of stuff. Like, it's possession. And like what we've learned is, you know, in the Syracuse game, we were up 25, I think, and we started like a cut. You know, it's traditional basketball to start walking the ball up the court, and you're like, no, let's go beat them by 35 type deal. You know, even though it's the Elam ending, doesn't mean the clock is not going to run out, guys. And that's, you know, they're all pros, and so they're used to, oh, we have a big lead, we can slow it down. Like, no, you just keep playing at your pace until you hit that last shot.
Now, you mentioned your like AAU teams. How many teams did you say you guys have?
Right now we have 5 AAU teams. We have a 7th grade girls team, an 8th grade girls team. We have a 9th grade boys team, and then we have a 9th grade girls team, and that's the one that Charlie coaches, our TBT head coach, down in Lancaster, which is about 3 hours from where I'm from. I'm in Altoona, Pennsylvania right now. And then the other 4 teams are all local here. And we have a 10th grade girls team, and they just went down. They won the Virginia Beach National Championship, and then they went to Kentucky, and they were in the Platinum Division, and they went 4-1 there. So they were the highest division down in Kentucky in the Run for the Roses, which is, you know, a huge, huge tournament. They are really, really playing well, which kind of honestly shocked us at how well they're playing right now.
Now, how has the pandemic, I guess, changed up how you guys practice or for your AAU team?
So it didn't necessarily really impact the AAU organization, other than the fact that, like, because they were just starting last year. Like, this is like June 1st of last year was kind of our first practice. And it was like when some of the sanctions got lifted here in Pennsylvania, we were able to then practice outside and do those type of things. They were able to go to like 2 or 3 tournaments. There was only 2 teams last year. So it hasn't really impacted them a whole lot. We've had to wear masks at some point, those type of things. With regards to TBT, though, it really changed things. Like last year, we were in the bubble we were in a hotel room for 20 days, I think it was, 17 days, something like that. And like the initial quarantine was like 48 hours in your room, can't leave. They're bringing you food. It was kind of creepy, honestly. And then you kind of got used to it. And then it kind of became fun when you were winning and, you know, you're playing in front of a crowd of 0. It was kind of weird. You learned, like, you know, at how kind of simple life can be at the same time. It's just you're in your hotel room kind of by yourself, couldn't communicate with any other people in the hotel except the people that were on your team. And above all, I think that that's what really bonded this team really closely together. Some teams, they would break apart in a situation like that. Our group really came together, and I truly mean that. Like, we got to know each other more so in last year's TBT because we were there for so long, and there was just nothing else to do. It was NBA 2K, you know, it was go to practice, come back, order some dinner, back to the NBA 2K or break down some film and go from there.
So this year, do they plan on do they still have similar restrictions or have they opened it up somewhat?
So they've opened it up. So we'll still have to get tested and everything like that. So our testing is Wednesday. They have some teams that have reached the full vaccination. They have some teams that have not. And so there's different, like, there's different things that the fully vaxxed teams can do and those that are not fully vaxxed. But for the most part, it's like, as long as you don't go into contact or go into any large crowds, like it's kind of like they're okay with it. Like you even see it kind of like in the NBA right now. Like after the game, Chris Paul is hugging his family and whatnot. Like I guess he had broken protocol. I don't know what happened there with that whole situation. But I'm talking about like even like in the NBA playoffs or the NBA finals, you know, there is some interaction that's allowed now. I think that they're a little bit, you know, less restrictive on it. But, you know, we still have to, you know, meet protocol. If a player tests positive, they're out. The whole 9 yards. And that can be a vaccinated player too. You know, we saw that with Chris Paul. So, you know, the COVID thing, like we're still living in that world. You know, hopefully by next year's TBT, we're out of that situation. But, you know, only time will tell. I thought at last year's TBT we'd be out of it. So clearly that didn't come true.
So as far as like your roster, like if you had like lose a couple of players, do they give you any roster flexibility as far as replacing them or?
No. So that's what happened to us. That's what happened to us last year. Is pre-tournament, we had 2 players test positive that didn't know that they were actually, and they were 2 of our starters from the year before.
Wow.
Yeah, one of them will be coming back this year. The other one was the one that got the contract situation where he's leaving to go back overseas Wednesday. So yeah, that happened. And Diamond Stone, who played in the NBA, you know, was a first round draft pick.
Yeah.
He hurt his Achilles in the first game. And we were all of a sudden like, we went in with 11 and we were down to 8. And we played against a Marquette team that they didn't lose anybody to COVID. And so it was kind of like just luck of the draw, you know, with regards to none of these players felt sick. It just was, they tested positive and, you know, so they were out, unfortunately. But, you know, we made the best that we could with it. And it's the same this year. Last year, though, was like if you tested positive when everybody was together, so we got tested every single day, your whole team was out. This year, it's just the individual player would be out. And then our team would go into testing protocol where we get tested 1 to 2 times a day, I believe.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Are they allowing spectators now?
Yeah. So, you know, it's going to be the West Virginia, it's in we're going to be down in Charleston, West Virginia. And so we're on the side of the poll that probably won't draw the largest crowds, but when West Virginia is the 2 seed and then the Marshall alumni team, they're the 3 seed. So we're the 1. So we avoid them the whole time. We won't play them until we get to Dayton. And at that point, you know, I'm sure some West Virginia fans will follow or Marshall fans or whatever, you know, if we're fortunate enough to get to that spot, but you know, we're hoping that we have some fans there, but you know, we're a TV team. We always tell people like we have fans all across the country in hospitals and whatnot. And we've had some crazy stories from people telling us like, you know, we had the one guy who was the first African-American player at Pittsburgh University, and he was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer while he was watching us play on TV.
Wow.
Just a crazy story. He reached out to us and we sent him a jersey. We put his name on the back of it. Like, you know, his sons and his family were so appreciative of that. And, you know, you could tell it was kind of a pride thing. He's like, wow, this disease that I have right now, there's people actually out there that are fighting for me. And we took in some crazy stories after last year's TBT that, you know, were really heartfelt. And it's why we do it. It's why, and our players know that too now. And it's like, they're like, wow, I'm a part of something that's bigger than basketball. And it's truly special.
I want to ask you, are there any teams considered the favorite going into the tournament besides your team?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Don't say Syracuse, please. Don't say Syracuse. I can't stand Syracuse. I'm a Georgetown fan, so don't say Syracuse, please.
So I'll tell you a little story here real fast. So the one team is a 4-time champion, overseas elite. They're the ones that had Joe Johnson on their team last year, but they're most known for DJ Kennedy, who actually I played against in high school. And DeAndre Kane, who I also played against in high school. But they beat us bad. My point is, though, that their team overseas elite, they are kind of like, when you think of TBT, you probably think of their team. They are not playing this year. But DJ Kennedy and DeAndre Kane got picked up by Boeheim's Army.
Wow.
Everybody now is calling them Boeheim's Elite Army or Boeheim's Overseas Elite Army. And so they're definitely a favorite. They're ranked as a 3 seed right now, but that was before they made those additions. Marquette, unbelievable people. Last year after winning, they donated some money to our foundation, the players, and their fan base donated like $15,000, like an incredible fan base. They stay very active on our social media page, commenting on things and whatnot. truly a class act right there. Joe Chapman, their head coach, there's not a better guy in TBT. You know, you have them. You got Challenge ALS. You got Carmen's crew in Dayton. You know, Carmen's crew is the Ohio State team. They are very, very good. West Virginia, Marshall in our division, Armored Athlete. There's a core of about 16 teams that probably can win TBT, but there's about 40 to 45 teams that can probably beat you on any given night. You know, maybe doesn't have the capability of winning it all, but they can beat you on any given night. I mean, these guys are pros, man. Like pros are pros.
So, you know what's interesting? So for Boeheim's Army, they actually picked up another player, Chris McCullough, that Terry Lariat knows really well. They both play together. They both played together on PSA Cardinals AAU team.
I'll have to tell Terry that.
Chris McCullough. Gotcha. Yeah, Chris McCullough's on Boeheim's Army. He went to Syracuse this year.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's a pretty cool story. There's so many connections in TBT. It's like wild. Our GM at TBT, Billy Clapper, he knows like all of the dynamics and knows who and what knows what, and it's crazy, honestly, at how much basketball is being played out there at all levels, and then the connections whenever you get up to like the highest levels, college and then pro. These guys have all either played against each other or played with each other at some point, and so they really do know each other. And there's a real level of respect for guys at all levels. Even the NBA guys like Chris Paul, they didn't put a team in this year, but he usually puts a team in this, and you know just loves the TBT because when you love basketball, man, it doesn't matter what your background is, you know, all that type of stuff. People just, if you love basketball, it's a community, man. It's tight knit.
Yeah, agreed. So how can people get involved in terms of donations or anything?
Yeah, so if you would like to donate, you could go to sidelinecancer.com. You know, the tab will be right there. We always kind of say, like, we're not so much about you know, if you want to go make a donation, like we're happy to take the donation, but simply following us on our social media pages, you know, and staying active on those, liking our pictures and whatnot, you know, commenting. We believe that type of movement, like similar to Susan G. Komen with the Ice Bucket Challenge, like the Ice Bucket Challenge wasn't like, hey, I'm donating $15 to, you know, not cancer research, to ALS research. It was just like, we're making it aware that this is a problem. This will be a problem. Like ALS is a problem that's, you know, one of the biggest mysteries really in science. Like they really don't know a whole lot about it. And so, you know, with regards to, you know, my dad's diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, there is a cure for pancreatic cancer. The problem is we catch it too late. Like by the time my dad was diagnosed, it was stage 4. Like John Lewis, the congressman, like same thing. Ruth Bader Ginsburg, same thing. Alex Trebek, same thing. That's just in this last calendar year, those people, right? If you can detect this thing early, then you have your cure. So that's what we really invest our money into, is early detection. And we used to kind of blindly donate to the point now that we're kind of like, we're waiting for early detection cancer research to come out. On our board, we have a couple of doctors that are gastro-oncologists and doctors and whatnot. And they're like, okay, this is legitimate. Let's throw our money at this instead of just blindly donating at things. You know, when you first get into something, we didn't really know the whole industry all that well. Now we do. My mom's one of 4 pancreatic advocates in the entire country. None of us are paid. We don't take a single dime from the foundation. And so, you know, it's one of those things like we just like our pictures. If nothing else, if you don't have money to donate, you can cure cancer in so many ways that you don't even know. Social media is powerful, man.
Could you give people some statistics around pancreatic cancer? Because I don't think a lot of people know how, you know, the level of commonness of it.
Yeah. So, I believe it's last year. So we're always going off of like 2019, 2020 statistics. I believe there were 57,000 people that were diagnosed. And of those, I believe it was 44,000 people died that year that were diagnosed in that one calendar year.
Wow.
My dad would not have been in that statistic. My dad made it 19 months. So when my dad, so here's the bombshell for a lot of people that a lot of people don't understand. When my dad was diagnosed, he was given 2 to 6 weeks to live. He was given 2 to 6 weeks to live. Like, that's what we're trying to change, right?
Wow.
You know, I had an aunt just recently diagnosed with cancer, and she was told she'd have 10 years to probably live. You can like when you've heard the 2 to 6 weeks and you get 10 years, you're like, okay, I got a lot of people I need to talk to, and I can get those conversations, and I can still live a quality life in that time. What we're trying to do is we're trying to push that time limit past, you know, a 6-month diagnosis, because a lot of times it's you hear of a person like the guy that's the CEO of the Marriott. He was 54 years old. You know, I was watching the news and it's like, oh, he has pancreatic cancer. I was watching CNBC in the morning. And like 6 weeks later, like, oh, Arnie Sorensen, he died. And I'm like, yep, that's 6 weeks. Like he had aggressive stage 4, probably adenocarcinoma like my dad did. And so, you know, that's what we really try to fight for is to get this cancer, we always say, off the sideline and to the finish line. And even if it's not a cure, if it's just to simply push it so that life expectancy is better, that's we would be more than happy with that as a good starting step.
So what can people do to kind of like, you know, try to become early diagnosed, or what type of things should they look for, or how would they go about getting checked for?
That's the thing right now. There's not a whole lot. So one more little story for you here. About 2 years after my dad died, we were introduced to a kid. His name was Jack Andraka. He was a 14-year-old boy in his science class, and his uncle was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic and liver cancer, like my dad was. And he went home and he spent like 6 months just thinking about it. And this is a 14-year-old, guys. Like, this is a 14-year-old. And he came up with an early detection test. He said, I'm going to rethink the way that cancer treatment takes place. When we think of cancer, we think of chemo. He goes, the best way to fight against cancer is to detect it early. So he came up with a blood sample. And this is like where the science part comes into. My mom could be a lot better at this than I am, but nanotubes and all these different types of things, CA19-9 markers that I can't really speak to very well. I'm not a science person.
But, I can.
Yeah, I know. It's like, but like you'd prick your finger and you take a little urine sample every day. And it won him the Intel Science Fair Award that year for redirecting the way that cancer research was taking place. Now, here's one of the problems with it, though, is when he went to 200 doctors, 199 of them said, no, this isn't the proper thought for cancer treatment. And one doctor, Dr. Anabon Mietra, who is located down in MD Anderson, said, you know what, kid, I'll give you a chance. And this was when Anabon Mietra was at Johns Hopkins. And he took a chance on the kid, and he created a product that was 98% accurate. Now, we know in the medical world, you need 100% efficacy. Yeah. And so it's not quite there, but if a 14-year-old kid that's sitting in a science class can figure this out, I would sure hope that some doctors with 12 years experience would be able to take what he has given to the world and be able to come up with a better solution. And so when that takes place, best believe Sideline Cancer and the 74 other pancreatic cancer foundations that are out there will be there supporting that research as well.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, that's crazy. A 14-year-old boy. Is that not wild?
I'm gonna ask you, have any players benefited from your platform? For example, let's say somebody working a 9-to-5 job and also they played in your tournament and played well, I got exposure, and I guess playing so well in your tournament, they're able to play overseas.
Yeah, we've definitely, one of our best players is Marcus Keene, and he led Division I in scoring. We took a gamble on Marcus when nobody really wanted him because he's 5'7", 5'8", and a little bit smaller in stature, and we went after Marcus after he had graduated. He played 1 year pro. All of our guys are pros just to start, but he was playing in Taiwan, and the way the overseas leagues work, like Taiwan's not up the highest, is not of the highest pedigree. Right. And first year when we were out in Wichita, he played well, not up to the standard that he did last year, but he still played well, and he was able to parlay that into a better contract. And then after what happened last year, he got up into Russia's highest league, the Estonian Russian league. It's called the VTB. Nice. And you guys are all from New York City, so you guys would know this guy, Mike James, right?
Yeah.
Mike James plays for the Brooklyn Nets. Well, Mike James's biggest rival when he was over in Russia, Marcus Keene. Mike James averaged 21 points a game. They're both point guards. Marcus Keene was averaging 20 points per game. Because Mike James left, Marcus Keene was the scoring champion. They would have been fighting. They would have been vying for it, and one of them would have gotten it, obviously. But it was 21 points to 20 points. One big game or one bad game, the other guy would have had it, type deal. Right. And so Marcus now just took a Euro Cup deal, which is the second highest level in Europe, I believe. I've really learned the European leagues and the overseas leagues, and so his exposure in TBT has really allowed him to, you know, profit off of, even though we didn't win the title last year and win the $1 million off of his exposure in TBT. And I think some of it, I think some of it helps too, is like obviously winning obviously helps, but you know, when you're associated, when you're with a Challenge ALS, when you're with a Sideline Cancer, you know, there's a positive image that comes with that as well. And nobody probably probably nobody more than Marcus Keene has really benefited from playing, you know, with Sideline Cancer and in the TBT. Like both of those things combined have really allowed him, along with his ability, clearly, he's really good, you know, to propel himself to the next levels of basketball. And if he leads us to a championship this year, honestly, he could be in the NBA this next season.
I want to ask one more question too. From your personal opinion, from either your team or any other team in the tournament, give me a percentage of players that you actually feel are NBA material.
There's such a fine line between NBA and the guys on. There's this podcast called Charge Nation, Zoom to TBT, and they always say, if you're 450, you have a spot in the NBA. There's 450 roster spots in the NBA. If you're 451, you're either playing G League. We know there's two-way contracts and whatnot, but you're either playing G League or you're going overseas to play. And the difference between somebody that's sitting at the end of the bench and and playing overseas is so razor thin. It's so small. A lot of times in our group chat with me, Charlie, and our general manager, Billy Clapper, we always say, would you take X player that's in the NBA or would you take Marcus Keene? And a lot of times that results in, well, it all depends on what you're looking for. You know, if you're looking for a cold-blooded scorer, you're taking Marcus Keene. But if you're looking for a guy that's going to be able to switch 1 through 4 type deal, well, then you might take the other guy. And so I think a lot of times it's just preference. You know, I got a friend that he's in professional basketball. He's out with the Suns. So they're doing pretty well. But, you know, I'm always like, man, you should take a look at this guy. You should take a look at this guy. And he's like, well, our preference is this. But another team's preference could be something completely different. So, you know, what separates these guys at the low end of the NBA, it's in overseas high-level Euro Cup leagues, like EuroLeague players, so razor thin. There's definitely NBA players playing in TBT, though.
Yeah. I mean, you have guys like Jamel Artis. Like, I thought, who played in the NBA.
Yeah, and so, like, I think Jamel got 18 games with the Orlando Magic, and you know, he high level basketball player. He is the reason that we beat overseas elite. And like, I know a lot of people, you know, you want to go to Mo Creek shot, you want to go to Marcus's 22, Mo's 20. I think he had a game Remy at 18 type deal. But Jamel has a NBA player's body.
Yeah, he's
6'7".
Yeah, he does.
6'7", long, and he's built, man. Like, he could guard Joe Johnson. He could guard Joe Johnson.
I watched that.
And, yeah. We didn't always have to run a double. Every other team had to run a double team at Joe Johnson, right? And if you didn't run a double team, like on the Marshall team, he scored 35. Against us, we would stun at him, and then sometimes we'd send one player. We never sent the same double team 2 times in a row. So like, we were trying to confuse them on where's that pass going to be. If he has to think an extra half second, that gives us a chance to respond. And so sometimes we'd send somebody from one area. Sometimes we'd send them from a different area. Sometimes we'd have to send them at all because we trusted that Jamel could guard him and he could take that beating that, I mean, Joe Johnson is crazy good. And
he's physically imposing.
Yep. And that's that's what a guy like Jamel Artis is able to do. And, you know, coming into this, that was Jamel's first year with us. If you'd have told me, because I'm a Pitt basketball fan, I grew up in central Pennsylvania, so Pittsburgh's pretty close, right? And so I watched a ton of Jamel Artis in college. I was like, oh, he's probably going to score 20 for us. No, he was one of our best defenders. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'd have never guessed that. And that's just a testament to how many skills that these guys have. They have crazy, crazy skill levels.
My son has a friend that actually plays for Pitt now. What's his name? A guy named Ethel Horton.
Okay.
He plays for Pitt now. So you should see him this year. Last year, you know, obviously, but he'll be out there this year.
Gotcha. I'll be watching.
So when you guys get together and really you're less than a week away now. Technically,
we're less than a week away.
You guys ready? Or how do you feel about the preparedness right now? Less than a week away.
Yeah, this goes back to like what we talked about at the very beginning is the connections part. You know, we stay active with our guys all year long, and they all stay active with one another. Honestly, the best thing that has ever happened to our team is the fact that these guys were in that bubble for as long as they were. And they all play like Call of Duty together now, or they play NBA 2K against each other online. So, you know, they're in constant communication with one another. We start our training camp on Tuesday tentatively. Like some people are flying in Wednesday type deal. So like the real basketball stuff will start Wednesday. Tuesday night will be just more of a workout night and like a, hey, how's everybody doing type night. So at the moment, we're as prepared as we can be. Are we 100% prepared at the moment? Like, no. You know, by Friday of this week, you know, we'll be prepared and we'll be back to like where we were last year, having all of our baseline out of bounds plays, sideline out of bounds plays, you know, what we're going to do, you know, offensively, defensively, schematically, and that type of stuff. But, you know, these guys are pros. It's not, I'm a high school basketball coach. It's not like coaching high school kids where you got to go over this stuff a million times. You tell them once, a pro knows it.
Oh, okay. So how's the high school team, man?
The high school team, we're kind of in a rebuild process right now. A lot of them are all playing AAU basketball with us. Like that 9th grade boys group, like a couple of them started for us this year. And, you know, when you're a 9th grade boy playing a high school schedule, like you're in a little bit of trouble unless you're a really, really good basketball player. And we don't have a whole lot of them around here. We have a lot of D2 level players, you know what I'm saying?
Okay.
And so that's what this class of kids coming up is. They're, you know, D2, maybe possible D1 here if another kid grows a couple inches or whatnot. So, you know, that's a little bit different type style of coaching than when you coach the professional players. It's a real treat to be able to be. I'm blessed to be able to coach both. I enjoy both a lot, and there's a lot of similarities, but there's also some drastic differences. Like I could just, you know, Marcus King, you put him in a ball screen, it's just like, okay, he'll do the rest. High school kid, you have to teach them all the things, and like that's the thing that gets forgotten is that somebody had to teach Marcus those things as well. You know, somebody had to teach Mo Creek how to shoot like that, or you know. To teach Eric Thompson to be that great of a role player, to know I'm a ball screener, I'm a rebounder, and I'm going to be an excellent defender. You know, somebody had to teach him that along the way, and then we get to be the beneficiaries of somebody's great coaching, which is truly, truly, you know, an awesome part of this whole story. Like you were talking about, you know, your son's playing AAU and all that type of stuff. Like if the best thing I could tell a kid right now is you don't have to take every message that a coach ever gives you. You just have to take a piece of what they tell you. If you take a piece from one coach, you take a piece from another coach, you take a piece from a teacher, you know, you take a piece from your parents and an aunt, an uncle, you're gonna really be successful in life. And that's what this whole foundation is really about with the Sideline Cancer, the I Can, and our messaging is believe always. You know, with an I Can attitude and believe always spirit, you know, we can change the world, and we truly do believe that basketball is going to change the world someday. And you know, we're hopeful that it happens, you know, sooner rather than later.
Now, does coaching the pro level players make it easier for you to come back to your high school team, like where they listen to you more because you have that, you know, experience coaching pro level players?
Yeah, I'm fortunate. I coach at the high school that I went to, and so I know a lot of these kids already. I know their older brothers. You know, I know their parents type deal, and the fact of the matter is I can still kick their ass. You know what I'm saying? Like when push comes to shove, it's like, you know, I don't want to look like I'm that good of a player, but compared to a 9th grade boy, I'll still kick him up and down the court a little bit. I can still run. So, yeah, but no, there is definitely some credibility that comes with that. If I'm able to say, like, look, this is the way that, you know, Remy would guard this screen, or this is the way I literally last year in practice, like we kept wanting to switch every single screen. We get caught with a big on a small, and the small taking us to the basket. And I'd say, if you watch our Team Hines game, we played drop coverage, so a little bit different on it, and it put Diamond in a bad situation. Every game after that, Eric Thompson hedged every ball screen hard. And I'm not saying hedging a ball screen is the way you have to guard it. Every team's different, right? But people don't necessarily like hedging a ball screen hard, but Eric Thompson did it because that's the type of man that Eric Thompson is. He's meat and potatoes. I'll do whatever you need me to do if you believe that's going to help us win. And, you know, and he believes in everything that this mission's about and that Charlie says, and that's the most important part. But, yeah, there's definitely some things that I'm able to go back and be like, hey, Marcus King did it this way. You might want to think about doing it that way, you know. So, yeah, there's definitely some, you know, cadence in that.
You said previously that you're a Pittsburgh Panther fan.
Yeah, I'm a Pitt basketball fan. Penn State at heart, but it's a, Penn State basketball is not always the best. So.
Yes,
Sometimes you got to go over the other side of River Pit because they're
because
actually a tournament.
I love college basketball, and I'm very familiar going as a kid to now, with Pittsburgh before I went to ACC. Mm-hmm. So, like, I got Charles Smith, Demetrius Gore, and J.C. Matthews, Jim McCullough. So, that being said, can you name your 5 favorite Pitt players?
Woo, put me on the spot. Jamel Artis is number 1.
Okay.
Brad. So I'm going to name some guys that we have actually played. We played against Pitt Zoo Crew 2 years in a row. And so the first year that I actually became part of this thing, it was our 3rd year, and it was Charlie's last year as a player. And we played Pitt Zoo Crew, and they beat our brains in. They beat us by like 30. And Levance Fields had a day against us. And ever since then, ever since then, I've been very like pro Levance Fields. Like, even like when you watch them on TV, I was younger. You got to understand, I was younger watching Levance Fields play. Yeah. I was be like, man, like, how does a guy like, and I hope he doesn't watch this, but I'm like, he was a little bit heftier back in the day for a point guard.
Yeah, he was.
And but that's the way Pitt did it. Like Carl Krauser, all those guys, like big, bulky point guards, right?
Yeah.
So my point being is like when you actually saw him on the court and how quick he was, and you're like, oh, he's actually more chiseled than you actually think. Like DJ Newbill is kind of that way too. You like look at him on TV, you're like, oh, he's a little pudgy. You see him on the court, you're like, oh, damn, no, that boy ain't like he's not pudgy at all. And but my point is like a lot of respect for Levance Fields. Like I've texted him a couple times before, like trying to get him to play for us. This is back in the day. And long story short, Brad Wanamaker was on that team too. Gary McGee was on that team.
Yes, he's probably
over by Kemba. Was on that team as well. But to go back to even like, earlier days, like the guy I played with Levance, I played against in high school, DeJuan Blair. Like I was a big fan. DeJuan Blair dunked on me. And then the second time I went over to take the charge, he just jumped over me basically. And the second time I went over and I just got out of the way, and my high school coach took me out and he's like, why didn't you guys take that charge? Did you guys see what happened last time, man? Like that's why I never take that charge again. But even like if you go back in the day, like Julius Page, like grinders, like Remy Abel, like you just throw him on anybody and he's guarding them. Those are the type of guys that, Sam Young, like I remember those type of guys. Anything before really 2000, I was a little bit too young to really, remember many of those players. Senadin Jerome's obviously, but yeah, those would definitely be my guys. But Jamel's definitely at the top of that list.
Nice.
Oh, yeah, that's real nice. So when you guys were saying go out there next week, listen, have you started to study your opponent yet? The scouting begin?
Scouting has began. And some of the scouting is a little bit easier now because we follow a lot of these professionals all year long.
Okay.
I'm fortunate as a teacher that, I can kind of, maneuver my schedule in a way. I teach the same 7 classes all day. And I can kind of maneuver my schedule a little bit. So it's like, oh, if, Jamel's playing on TV, I can, or not on TV, but live streaming, at 10 a.m. It's like, I can maneuver it. So it's like I catch a half of the game, but then, I'm watching Jamel, but I'm also watching the guys that they're playing against because I'm like, is it somebody that we would want to go after? Or is it also, or could it also be someone that we're going to play against in TBT? And so, when it comes to some of these teams, like for instance, like if we're it's a single elimination tournament. So if we're fortunate enough to get to the Sweet 16, we're thinking we're going to play Armored Athlete. And Cody Clark had one of the best seasons you can possibly have in Israel's Winter League this year, which is the highest league basically in basketball outside of Euro League and Euro Cup. It's Israel Pro 1 is as high as it gets basically. Maccabi Tel Aviv and some of those teams. And Cody Clark, 6'7", shot 47% from 3. He's a dream of a player. He's 8 rebounds type guy. You follow these guys throughout the year, and it's like when I first started in TBT, I would never have even known who Cody Clark was, and I wouldn't have even known like how good European basketball is over there, or what the roles are in some of these leagues, because you can't look at like a guy like Mike Dom who dominated last year's TBT and look at his Spanish stats and go, dude, he only averaged 10 points a game. Cody Clark averaged 21, like in a higher league. But what you don't know is in Spain, they can only play a certain amount of quarters, and then they have to sit. for other Spaniards. So there's different roles that go into play. So it's like when you're looking at a player's stats, you go, oh, this guy only averaged 7 in Spain. Yeah, he only played half the game, so he'd average 14 if he played in Israel's Winter League. But yeah, so we've definitely broken down some scouting report. The advantage that teams will have on us is the fact that they know predominantly what our players have done because they have 5 game films from last year and even 3 more out in Wichita to be able to say, oh, this is what they're going to do. So, we're prepping for James Madison right now. They're the 16 seed. They have a couple high-level pros. They have a couple guys that haven't played pros in a while. And they actually have a girl on their team as well that
wow.
Yeah, and you guys are getting a little inside scoop here. If TBT does a women's TBT next year, which they're saying that they're going to do, first off, we will have a team in that. And second of all, best believe I'm going to go over and shake her hand and be like, Jordan Griffith, here's my number. We're picking you up for women's TBT. 100%. You can book it.
Early recruiting effort.
Early. Oh, trust me, we've already started recruiting our women's TBT team. Like this whole thing, it doesn't stop around here.
Nice.
We call it a lifestyle. It's a sideline cancer lifestyle. There's a whole bunch of different avenues, but in order for us to stay on top, we just have to outwork people, and that's Charlie outworks people. Billy really outworks people, and so my mom too. We just never stop. That's the sideline cancer way. It's I can believe always, all day, baby.
Nice.
And yeah, that's one of the things that I don't think like myself and a bunch of other people realize is exactly how much work goes in, to it behind the scenes.
Yeah. Ton of work. So this morning I woke up at 6:30 and Charlie called me at 6:45 to talk about how his games went last night in his AAU. And then Billy called me about players at 7:45, and then he went off to church. And then called me at noon about a couple different players because, like I said, we're kind of in that shuffle right now where we lost a player or two due to contract situations and whatnot.
Yeah.
And so, it's one of those things that you're never completely settled. We're also never anxious about it because it's not one of those things like we believe that God drives this mission, that this is a mission of love. It's a mission of, it's thy will be done. My mom always calls it, we're parting the purple Red Sea. And, we believe that we can do our best at the end of the day, but thy will be done. That was my dad's, last message to us, thy will be done. And when you truly live a life like that, there's a peace at your heart saying we could go off, we could lose to James Madison in the first round, but that doesn't stop the momentum that we have going here. So there's obviously some pressure on us being the number 1 overall seed. Like obviously, having that number 1 seed, there's a target on your back. But when it comes to the work ethic, nobody outworks us. We study, we watch games overseas constantly. Like we have favorite teams, favorite players that we like to watch. And we all kind of work different schedules. Like Charlie works from 4 until 9, or 3 until 9 when he trains kids. So he gets to watch some of the games during the day. I'm a teacher and a basketball coach. So from like 6 to 10 at night, I might turn on a game. And Billy's constantly watching, or at least like stat watching. And so, there's a lot to all this. The logistical part, as we get down to this, flying guys in and that type of stuff. There's a lot that goes to it, buying food and all that type of stuff. Like there's more than just the basketball. Like when you guys watch this product, there's guys that are paid in the NBA probably hundreds of thousands of dollars to do what we do because we believe that what we're doing is the right thing to do.
Nice. So when you bring these guys together and everything, you said you lost 2 players. Interesting enough. Will you guys try to recruit some guys in a short notice to try to replace these guys?
Yes. So that is
okay.
that is what took place today. And so, yeah. And some of that is like, you might call Mo Creek, you might call it Marcus and be like, do you have a guy that would want to play with us? That's how Isaiah Austin was brought into the equation. Was Marcus was like, hey, after last year's TBT, I was playing, I believe in Dallas, just some pickup basketball. And I told Isaiah, like, if you want to rock with us, you can rock with us. And so like, literally that was the easiest recruiting we've ever done. We called Isaiah and when was it? It was like February. And like, hey, you want to roll? And he's like, yep, I'm in. I'll give you my video. Send it over. And it was that easy. And then obviously, the big 3, he was the number 1 overall draft pick.
He looked good yesterday too.
Yeah, I know. Isaiah is a special player. And he's built for 3-on-3 basketball. Like if I was to have a perfect 3-on-3 basketball player, like what they would look like, the skill set, the whole 9 yards, it's Isaiah Austin, 100%. And so, we were sitting on May 1st when TBT opened. We had Isaiah Austin. We had Trey Lewis, who I haven't talked a lot about on here. Like Trey Lewis is Israel Winter League, like high level pro, crosses half court and he's open type player. And then we also had Aubrey Dawkins, who is the son of Johnny Dawkins, who played at Duke. Dad's the coach Taco Fall. They were part of that run that almost beat Duke then. His dad's the coach there, was the coach out of Stanford, I believe, as well. But then, the NBA came calling, and so he had to go, do NBA Summer League and whatnot. And so that kind of left us in a precarious situation. And that's how we ended up with Terry Laurier. And we actually you guys might know the guy too, Daniel Hamilton, played at UConn.
Yeah, I know him.
And then literally he said he was in. 24 hours later, he rolled his ankle. Sent us a picture, and we're like, dang, I guess we're back to the recruiting scene. And then about 2 days later, Ray Cow's like, hey, my contract. And we're like, oh, my gosh, here we go. So that's typical, though, for TBT in a tournament like this. You want to get as good as you can. But when you had a roster like we knew that there was going to be, outside interests that come in, and they have to go take those. There's no hard feelings or anything like that. But they also know, too, like, if things don't work out, that they can come back to us, and, doors always going to be open.
That's great.
I want to ask you, can you guys add players during the season, or you must keep the same roster before the season starts?
So June, I think this is what you're asking. So like June 15th is when the rosters close on June 15th. Okay. So that's the free agent signing period. Okay. After June 15th, if you want to add a player, it's going to cost you $1,000. So,
wow.
Yeah. So that's the other thing that goes into the situation. We talk about a player and then we say, are they worth $1,000? Meaning, like, do they make us that much better? Do we have that much better chance of winning a TBT title with this guy or not? And so that comes into play. And remember too, like after June 15th, the best ever, if you're a high level player playing over in Europe, you've been probably asked by 25 different teams. Like Trey Lewis last year, he said he was asked by except it was like 14 of the TBT teams. And so a lot of these guys have all been asked. Now, some of them are being asked by teams. They're like, hey, we've won one game in TBT. Like, we have the luxury of saying, like, we went to the championship game last year. Like, we're legit. We can't guarantee you anything, really. All we can guarantee you is that we put you in one of the best positions to win TBT, because Marquette alumni is probably not going to pick you up, right? Bayham's Army is probably not going to pick you up because they're an alumni team. Ohio State, like, if you want to be, we always call them the other teams, like Eberline Drive, us, Challenge ALS. Those are the teams that, and Armored Athletes in there too. Those are the teams that give you the best chance to win. And so if you want to roll with us, we can promise you one thing, that you will enjoy the experience and that we will present you in the most positive light possible. And because you're playing for something that's bigger than basketball. And I think a lot of guys too, like when they go, especially our guys, like when they went home after last year's run, I think it was kind of like, mom and dad were happy with them. Girlfriend was happy that they were playing for something bigger than basketball. And it was kind of something that there's definitely been a lot more of them posting with their Sideline Cancer stuff on in the last 2 years than we've seen in the years past. I think there's a lot of like pride that now goes into, playing for this brand, which is what we wanted all along.
Yeah, which is great.
We honestly have some of the best guys in TBT. Like we got some great guys in TBT, man. They're just great, humble, wholesome people.
Okay. So, Jordan, I wanted to ask you a couple of questions. You think that wasn't any of your players would be willing to come on and talk about their what's in their careers, or was it more and talk about the team more?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. If you guys go through and you guys ask me a player or two, we have some downtime during TB. Last year we had a lot of downtime. This year, I'm not as sure what the schedule, and like last year I had no idea what the schedule's going to look like, but our guys were doing podcasts for TBT, not because they were being told they had to do them. Like Mo does podcasts a good deal of time. Like he does them.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, like he goes back to, not back to Indiana, but he does like the Indiana podcast, George Washington podcast. There's one called like the Nitty Gritty down in Baltimore, like where he's from. Like he does that. He's done that one before. Remy does them. Marcus has done them. So if I ask them, like, I can't guarantee they'll say yes, but
yeah, I can understand.
Yeah, I'm sure like a guy like Eric Thompson and Marcus and Mo and Remy and all them, like Jamel, like they would be more than probably happy to come on here. They might not be able to do a whole hour, but they could do.
No, I can understand.
Like, yeah, 20 to 30 minutes type deal.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, no, I think that'd be really cool.
If you can, just tell everybody about the organization. Tell everybody, what you guys stand for, what they can do to help, what you guys like. Yeah. So I want to make sure that everybody has the clear message because it's a great cause, and I want to make sure that everybody that we can connect with or help connect with and understand the whole situation.
Yep. And so our foundation is Sideline Cancer, and our foundation supports the research of Dr. A. James Moser of Beth Israel Deaconess Hospital out of Harvard University. Our goal is to take pancreatic cancer off the sidelines and to the finish line for a cure. With an I can attitude and believe always spirit, you can do anything. We can do anything. The number one thing. I'm sorry. What was the second part of your question again?
Like what you guys' goals are, and
Oh, there we go. Yeah. So our goal is to find an early detection test for pancreatic cancer, so that people's life expectancy can be not 2 to 6 weeks like my dad's, but 3 to 5 years, or maybe even someday to hopefully find a cure. There's 74 other pancreatic cancer organizations out there that are trying to do the same thing. My mom is one of 4 pancreatic advocates in the entire country. She's the vice president at the Digestive Disease National Coalition in Washington, D.C. None of us take a single penny. There's organizations out there that, there's people taking high salaries. Nobody takes a salary here. The only thing that the foundation's ever provided my mom and I is a car that has our branding, that has the branding on it. And so, we're 100% transparent. Everything we try to do is out of the goodness of our heart. And so if you roll with us, by either donating, or if not everybody comes from a situation where they can donate. If you can participate on social media, which the majority of people in this country have, follow us. We'll follow you back. Like if you go to our Instagram page, we follow back about 95% of the people on there because you're part of our army, right? We're not on here. We're not in this for popularity. We don't care how many people are following us and how many are we following. That's not what this thing's about. This thing is about finding a cure. And if you're with us, then you're part of this great army that, is going to be rolling on ESPN, watching Marcus Keene hit threes with an I can attitude and believe always spirit that one day we will find a cure for pancreatic cancer. And really at the end of the day, you guys know this too, it's all cancers. Our mission just happens to be pancreatic because that's what took my dad's life. It's taking people's lives all across the country. John Lewis, Alex Trebek, just to name a couple of them. So sidelinecancer.com, or go to our Instagram handle, Sideline Cancer TBT, and follow us on the social media handle is the best way that you can help fight back against this deadly disease.
Well, thank you for definitely coming on. It's appreciated. I've already followed all
on here too. Like honestly, like this was great tonight. You guys asked great questions, and I'll be tuning in for sure now.
Oh, thank you. We look forward to seeing you guys play. I'll be watching the games and with him supporting you guys. With him, a great cause or something. And I think thank you for bringing more awareness to everybody too.
After the tournament, if you don't mind, we got to have you back.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely. I'll come on here and hopefully we've won the tournament. I can talk to you about. I mean, here's the thing. At the end of the day, with us, it's not about the money. Like with the foundation, it's not about the money. It's about doing stuff like this. Like I'm hitting a completely different audience tonight than I could have ever even imagined. Right. We don't have any connections really to New York City or anything like that. And so by coming on here, we hit a group of people that we would never have really been able to touch before. And it might be somebody on here that's watching that goes to an AAU tournament. And this is why we're doing the AAU stuff, because this stuff happens. We go to an AAU tournament and go, I remember watching you on ESPN. And someone might say, I remember watching you on this podcast. That's the way that this stuff happens. And now all of a sudden we've made that connection with somebody, and then who knows, they might change the world. And it's all because of this podcast. It brings a tear to my eye just thinking about it, but it happens. It happens that way. I'm telling you, it's real.
That's true. Yep.
So Yeah, I love that you guys had us on tonight, and it was worth every minute of it. You guys do a fantastic job, and keep fighting the good fight.
I said.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Have a good night, buddy. Take care.
Have a good night.
Hey, you too, guys. Have a good one.
Thank you.